The skies above Virellum Prime were not supposed to bleed. Yet they did. Crimson fire trailing across the upper atmosphere as the once tranquil planet shuddered beneath the shadow of the Zalvari fleet. The Dominion's invasion was not a strike but an execution. Planetary shields collapsed like old paper under precision-guided antimatter detonations. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to glowing embers in mere hours. The air, once filled with birdsong and the hum of crystalline wind instruments, now vibrated with the hollow thunder of orbital bombardments. Refugees ran not for safety, but for a slower death. For the Zalvari, extermination was a routine, soulless, clinical, and horrifically efficient. The Dominion had no rivals. For over 3 centuries they swept through galaxies like a plague of silence, systems erased from maps, cultures extinguished before first contact could even begin. They moved with chilling consistency, driven not by conquest but by some greater, unknowable directive. Their warships were dark and smooth, grown rather than forged, biomechanical organisms the size of cities, bristling with graviton lances, and quantum disruptors. They never negotiated. They never paused. The only communication they offered was a standard data pulse translated to every known language. Submit and be erased with mercy. Resist and be forgotten entirely. The Zalvari had consumed the Zaran alliance in less than 48 hours. They had rendered the Corvaline matriarchy extinct in a single orbital firestorm. They cracked the moons of Veltun and poisoned the suns of the Argelon Reach. With each annihilation, the galaxy grew quieter, dimmer, more fearful. Resistance had become synonymous with suicide. Their expansion was not questioned. It was expected. And so, when their vanguard entered the Erexion expanse, there was no urgency, no alarms. It was just another campaign, another calendar entry in the endless ledger of extermination. But then, something happened. At the fringes of their sensor range, drifting just beyond the burnt wreckage of an automated listening post, was a lone vessel. It appeared small at first, smaller than a frigate, yet somehow radiating a presence that defied logic. Its design was angular, alien to Dominion databases. Sleek, yes, but not ornamental. Predatory. The hull shimmered with active nanofilaments, its surface adapting constantly, absorbing and re-emitting surrounding radiation like a chameleon on caffeine. It bore no transponder, no language signature, no diplomacy protocol. It was a ghost with a heartbeat. In the command throne of the Dominion's super-dreadnought Velascrew, High Marshal Kael'thar observed the anomaly through a series of psycho-linked, ocular feeds. His brain, augmented with trinodal intelligence grafts, processed data faster than most ships could generate it. Still, the warship defied explanation. "Scan it again," he growled, his vocal folds reverberating with an acidic, rhythmic hiss. "What is this thing?" A dozen responses flashed in his vision, none conclusive. No biosigns, no standard power emissions. And yet the energy contained within its compact frame rivaled their own heaviest assault platforms. A lesser commander might have dismissed it. Kael'thar did not. Instinct, hardwired into his species over millennia of war, told him something was wrong. This wasn't a scout. It wasn't bait. It was something worse, something deliberate. Meanwhile, aboard the vessel itself, Admiral Cassandra Rain stood alone in the bridge of Earth's last surviving experimental war platform. Judicator. She wasn't born in comfort or legacy. She was born in a mining dome, on the fractured crust of Titan's second colony, where the oxygen generators wheezed like old men, and radiation shields flickered like dying stars. She had grown up on old Earth history, the true kind, buried beneath centuries of government erasure and interstellar politics. She knew what the Zalvari had done to Earth's colonies before humanity vanished. She knew about the silence, the disappearances, the erased outposts, and she knew this day would come. Her uniform was dark, unadorned except for a single blood-red insignia etched into her collar, a broken Earth, wrapped in flame. She didn't need medals. Her war record spoke through the scars burned into the inner hull of Judicator, remnants of forgotten battles humanity had fought alone in the shadows, surviving on intelligence, innovation, and rage. She tapped the holographic display before her. "Confirm target," she said flatly. The AI's voice was deep, ancient, and laced with synthetic gravitas. "Target, Velas crew. Estimated crew, 93,000. Status, primary command vessel." "Charge main guns," Rain ordered. "We fire when we're in range." The Dominion fleet shifted uneasily. Smaller support ships, twin-hulled cruisers and escort pods, began forming defensive lattices around the dreadnought. Still, they waited. The warship did not speak. It did not hail. It simply moved, slowly, silently, like a predator circling, wounded prey. Then it fired. Not with a warning shot, not with a traditional salvo, but with a singularity round. A destabilized gravity well compressed into a tungsten-bonded prism, fired from a linear accelerator that bent space with each pulse. The shot hit Velascrew dead center, punched through 6 decks, reversed polarity within the core reactor, and collapsed the ship's artificial gravity field in a bloom of sickening blue light. Thousands of Dominion lives were erased in an instant, not with fire, not with pain, but with silence. A vacuum implosion consumed everything within a 100-meter radius. The Dominion fleet reeled. Kael'thar screamed commands, rallying fighters, ordering suppressive bombardment. But their weapons couldn't lock. Judicator vanished between visual frames, shifting coordinates faster than any real space engine should allow. Its adaptive, shielding warped light, distorting targeting data. Countermeasures released were not decoys but hard-light projections indistinguishable from the real thing. And then it reappeared, directly above the Dominion's primary command group. Admiral Rain narrowed her eyes. "Initiate Protocol Revenant." A deep hum echoed through the ship's frame. Beneath the bridge, in the core of Judicator, a containment seal disengaged with a hiss. Arcos, the sentient war AI constructed from the fragmented neural scans of Earth's greatest tacticians, awakened. The lights dimmed. The temperature dropped 17 degrees. Then the AI spoke, for the first time in over 7 centuries. "Dominion threat detected. Conditions met. Total elimination authorized. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to HFY Chronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight." The Dominion's illusion of invincibility fractured in seconds. One moment they were the gods of the galaxy, the next they were prey. And as the stars burned and fleets scattered, one truth became violently, beautifully clear. Humanity hadn't died. It had prepared. The aftermath of the first strike was chaos. For the Dominion, their fleet was no longer an impenetrable wall. It was a shattered mosaic, broken, disorganized, vulnerable. The Velas crew, the very symbol of their overwhelming might, now floated in a ruinous silence, its command bridge a charred crater of molten metal and forgotten souls. The crew was lost, but not entirely. In the moments before the ship's core collapsed, the emergency escape pods launched, scattering in all directions like erratic fireflies in the deep void. There were survivors, though none would ever be the same. Admiral Kael'thar, who had never known defeat, felt something inside him splinter as the shockwave from Judicator's singularity round echoed through his thoughts. The loss of the Velas crew was more than a tactical failure. It was a blow to the very foundation of the Dominion's invincibility. For the first time in centuries, doubt began to creep into the minds of their leaders. "What is this ship?" Kael'thar demanded, his voice cold and sharp, as though he were addressing the very void of space itself. His officers worked feverishly at their stations, pulling together scraps of sensor data and fragmented communications. But none of it made sense. A human warship? Impossible. Humanity had been eradicated, wiped from the galactic stage, their remnants buried beneath the weight of 1,000 genocidal campaigns. The idea that they could return, and with such power, was a concept so alien it strained Kael'thar's mind to even acknowledge. Across the galaxy, in the far reaches of the abandoned colonies that once thrived under the banner of Earth, similar conversations played out. High-ranking Dominion commanders gathered around holoconferences, faces twisted in disbelief. "The Judicator," they murmured, repeating the name like some dark chant. But no one understood what it was, how it had appeared, or Most importantly, why it had come. There was only one certainty: humanity had returned. The Judicator, in contrast to the Dominion's biomechanical warships, was a study in precision and design. It was not an organism, but a creation, born of Earth's best minds, engineered in secret for centuries, and powered by something far beyond the technology of any known race. The ship itself seemed to pulse with a dark, unnatural energy, like the heartbeat of something ancient, something that had been hidden away, waiting. Inside the bridge, Admiral Rain observed the enemy fleet through her tactical interface. The Dominion warships were scrambling, sending out desperate signals. Their efforts to retaliate were predictable, almost laughable. They still believed in their superiority, still relied on tactics that had wiped out entire civilizations. Rain smiled. But it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was the smile of a predator who had tasted victory, but knew better than to underestimate its prey. "Initiate long-range cannons," she commanded, her voice steady as if issuing a simple order. On a routine mission. The AI, Arcos, responded with an efficiency that made the cold void of space feel almost comforting. A deep thrum resonated through the hull of the Judicator as the weapon systems powered up. The long-range cannons, capable of channeling gravitational anomalies into destructive beams of unimaginable force, were unleashed in a single pulse of concentrated energy. The beams struck like fists of a cosmic giant, sending shockwaves through the Dominion's defensive formations. Entire ships were torn apart in moments, their hulls shattered and their crews lost in the blink of an eye. Yet, even in the face of such devastation, the Dominion did not falter in their response. They counterattacked with the only strategy. They knew: overwhelming firepower. The sky above them erupted with a symphony of destructive potential. Ion blasts, quantum torpedoes, and antimatter lances streaked toward Judicator like a deadly rain. But none found their mark. The ship's adaptive shielding activated, an invisible force field that distorted space itself. It was as if the laws of physics themselves bent to Judicator's will. The energy beams hit the shield, but instead of scattering or dissipating, they were bent and redirected, sent off into the void. The Dominion's weapons, once feared across hundreds of star systems, were now impotent. "We're not here to play their game," Rain muttered under her breath as she monitored the battle's progress. She was calm, almost serene in her focus. The Judicator was not a ship designed for brute force. It was a precision weapon. Its strength lay in its ability to disrupt, to disable, and to annihilate with surgical precision. The Dominion's overwhelming firepower, once seen as the pinnacle of military might, was now nothing more than an annoyance. Meanwhile, across the Dominion fleet, commanders scrambled to reassess the situation. They had never faced anything like this. The Judicator was not just powerful, it was unpredictable. It didn't follow the rules of war they had come to rely on. Every action, every countermeasure seemed to be anticipated. It was as if the ship was alive, thinking, responding before they could even react. On the Judicator, Admiral Rain's hands hovered over the controls, fingers gliding over the holographic interface, with the precision of a maestro conducting an orchestra. Her mind was fully engaged, calculating, planning the next move. But it wasn't just the tactical brilliance of the ship that gave her confidence. It was the knowledge of what this moment meant. This wasn't just a battle. This was a turning point in history. Humanity was not going to disappear again. Not this time. She had made a vow, one that had been etched into her soul ever since the fall of Earth's colonies. She had seen the Dominion's cruelty firsthand, their methodical, cold eradication of her people. And now, they would see the price of underestimating humanity. The Dominion retaliated once more, this time with an escalation that sent ripples of tension through the fabric of space. They brought their reinforcements to bear, warships that had been designed specifically to combat the human prototypes. These ships were massive, towering behemoths with shields that could withstand the fiercest of barrages. They closed in on Judicator, attempting to corner it in the empty vastness of space. But the Judicator was never meant to be trapped. Rain had already anticipated this move. The ship's engines roared to life, shifting them into an evasive maneuver that left the Dominion warship struggling to keep up. The Judicator dove into the gravity wells of a nearby binary star system, weaving between the twin suns with reckless precision. The Dominion ships, larger and slower, had no such agility. One by one, they were drawn into the turbulent fields of radiation, forced to disengage or face complete destruction. In the distance, the remnants of the Zalvari fleet watched in stunned silence as the Judicator tore through the Dominion's ranks like a blade through flesh. The once dominant force, so sure of their invincibility, was now reeling, losing more ships with each passing moment. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the Dominion's high command, Kael'thar's mind began to crack. He had never known fear, but now, staring at the growing destruction, he realized something. The galaxy was about to change forever. The tide of battle had shifted, and with it, the balance of power in the galaxy. The Dominion fleet was in disarray, their tactics rendered useless against a single human warship. They had underestimated humanity, believing their advanced technology and centuries of conquest had made them untouchable. But now, that arrogance was crumbling like the very ships they had once believed to be invincible. Admiral Kael'thar sat in the shattered remains of his command center aboard the Valkara, his flagship. The faint hum of the ship's dying systems buzzed around him, a reminder of the Dominion's once mighty strength, now reduced to a fraction of its former glory. His mind raced, calculating, analyzing every failed strategy and lost engagement. He could still hear the reports, the loss of the Velas crew, the failed counterattacks, the enemy's relentless advance. It was as if Judicator had seen through every move they made before they even had a chance to act. How? How was this possible? No technology, no military force, no race had ever challenged the Dominion like this. "Admiral, we are losing," his tactical officer Phala said softly, her voice trembling under the weight of defeat. She was a seasoned veteran, yet even she could not mask the horror in her eyes. "We must retreat. We can't continue this fight." Kael'thar's jaw clenched. The word retreat was foreign to him, as it was to the entire Dominion. They had never once had to consider such an option. But now, faced with the undeniable truth that their empire could be brought to its knees by a single human ship, the words seemed to carry a weight greater than any weapon. "Not yet," Kael'thar growled. "We will make them pay. Prepare the final countermeasure. All ships, fall back to the Valkara formation. We will destroy them with everything we have left." Across the battlefield, the remaining Dominion ships began to pull back, reluctantly abandoning their pursuit of Judicator as the order was given. The human warship, meanwhile, did not follow them. It hovered just outside the radius of the scattered debris of their former fleet, an ominous sentinel watching as the broken remnants of the Dominion retreated. The Judicator had already calculated its next move. While the Dominion struggled to regroup, Rain and her crew were moving with deliberate purpose. Admiral Rain's face was stoic, but beneath her calm exterior, there was a fire burning. Every maneuver, every moment of the battle had led to this one. She had seen the potential of Judicator since its first prototype emerged from Earth's deepest military complexes. This ship was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a testament to the will of a species that had been nearly wiped from the stars. This was a chance for humanity to reclaim its place in the universe, not as a footnote in galactic history, but as a force to be reckoned with. The Judicator was the harbinger of that change. "Arcos, prepare the tactical strike," she ordered, her voice steady and unwavering. The AI responded instantly, its cold efficiency reflected in the sharp tones of its synthesized voice. "Calculating optimal strike pattern," Arcos replied, its voice resonating through the ship's systems. "Coordinates locked. Tactical strike will breach Dominion fleet's weak point." "Execute," Rain commanded, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced precision. The Judicator shifted, its sleek, almost organic design rippling as if alive, and then it moved with a grace that belied its immense firepower. The warship was no longer a passive observer. It was a predator hunting down its prey. The Judicator's long-range weapons activated again, but this time they were not aimed at the scattered remnants of the fleet. Instead, the ship released a series of tactical drones, advanced fighters that swarmed like locusts. These drones were not just standard military units, they were tailored to exploit every weakness the Dominion had. Each drone carried a high-energy pulse capable of penetrating the Dominion's hardened shields. targeting their blind spots with surgical accuracy. They were humanity's answer to the impossible odds they faced, and they were poised to turn the tide even further in their favor. As the drones cut through space, the remaining Dominion vessels attempted to regroup, their commanders scrambling to formulate a counterattack. But their efforts were futile. The Judicator's drones were not just machines. They were an extension of the ship's will. They darted, dove, and weaved through the Dominion ship's defensive screens with an unnatural efficiency, every maneuver calculated to maximize damage. For those Dominion ships, despite their immense size and firepower, were unprepared for such a relentless adaptive assault. One by one, they fell, their massive forms crumbling under the precision strikes of the drones. A Valkara cruiser erupted into a fiery ball of destruction, its reactor core destabilized by a direct hit. Another Dominion warship, the Zarnak, was torn apart by a series of devastating energy pulses, its shields failing to hold against the onslaught. The Judicator was a whirlwind of destruction, and there was no escape. Inside the command center of the Judicator, Admiral Rain observed the destruction with a quiet resolve. The war was far from over, but this was a victory, one that would reverberate across the galaxy for generations. The Dominion had thought themselves untouchable, but humanity had shattered that illusion in a single, decisive strike. The Judicator had proven its worth. But it was not just the ship that made the difference. It was the heart and will of the people it represented. Those who had fought for survival. Those who had clawed their way back from the edge of extinction. The battle raged on, but for the Dominion, it was already over. Kael'thar's final desperate attempts to mount a defense were nothing more than the last gasps of an empire crumbling under the weight of its hubris. The galaxy was changing, and there was no turning back. Admiral, the last of their ships are falling back, Arcos reported. The Dominion's fleet is in disarray. We have achieved victory. Rain's eyes remained fixed on the display, but her thoughts were already ahead. This victory, though monumental, was only the beginning. The Dominion had been shattered, yes, but the true test was yet to come. What would they do with this newfound power? How would humanity navigate the complex, dangerous future that awaited them? As the battle ended and the remnants of the Dominion fleet fled into the farthest reaches of space, one thing was certain. Humanity was back, and the universe would never be the same. The silence in the wake of victory was deafening. The hum of the Judicator's systems was a reminder of the relentless power that had driven them to this moment. But there was no time to rest. Victory was fleeting, and the universe had already begun to shift in response. Admiral Rain stood before the vast display window of the command center, staring out into the void of space where the last remnants of the Dominion fleet scattered like broken fragments of a shattered mirror. Her eyes traced the lines of debris, the glowing remnants of what had once been the pride of an empire that thought itself unassailable. She felt it. The weight of their victory was a heavy mantle. The Dominion had been humbled, their arrogance torn down by a single warship and its crew. Yet in the stillness, she could sense the rising tide of something greater, more dangerous. The Dominion was not the only power that would notice this shift, and Rain knew it. The galaxy was a vast and ever-changing arena. The power vacuum left by the Dominion would be filled, and other factions, other civilizations, would soon make their move. Admiral, we've received an encrypted transmission, Arcos announced, breaking the silence. It's from the Alliance. Rain's thoughts shifted, her mind quickly calculating the implications. The Alliance was a coalition of various factions that had united under the banner of peace and stability, seeking to prevent the dominance of any one power over the galaxy. Until now, they had viewed humanity as a fledgling species, an afterthought, in the grand cosmic dance. But the victory over the Dominion had changed that. They had proven themselves. But would they be welcomed as allies, or feared as a new, unpredictable force? "Open it," Rain said, her voice calm but firm. The transmission flickered on the massive holographic screen before her, and a familiar figure appeared. It was High Consul Valen, the leader of the Alliance. His stern face filled the screen, the lines of age and wisdom etched into his features. "Admiral Rain," Valen began, his voice measured. "We have been watching your recent actions with great interest. The destruction of the Dominion fleet is a monumental achievement, But it also raises significant questions. The Alliance seeks peace, but peace in the galaxy cannot be maintained by the whims of a single power, no matter how formidable that power may be. Rain's fingers tightened on the armrests of her chair. She could hear the undercurrent of suspicion in Valen's words. Humanity had disrupted the delicate balance of power, and now the galaxy was paying attention. For all their success, humanity was still a newcomer to the galactic stage. The Judicator's victory had proved one thing: humanity was a force to be reckoned with, but the price of that recognition would be high. "We have no interest in dominating the galaxy, High Consul," Rain replied, her voice unwavering. "We seek only to protect ourselves and those who share the values of liberty and freedom. The Dominion's reign of terror had to end." Valen's expression softened, but only slightly. "I understand your position, Admiral. However, we must ask, what now? You have proven your strength. But strength alone cannot guarantee peace. We cannot afford another power to rise unchecked, no matter the origin." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Rain to contemplate Valen's words. The Alliance had always stood as a bulwark against the ambitions of any empire, including the Dominion. But now, they were facing a new reality. A reality where humanity was no longer a quiet participant in galactic affairs, but an active, powerful force. What would the Alliance do with that knowledge? Would they attempt to suppress humanity, fearing its potential? Or would they embrace them as an ally, recognizing the strength that had brought down the Dominion? "Admiral," Arcos interrupted her thoughts, "new intelligence has arrived. The Xantari Empire has been monitoring the recent events. They have already mobilized their fleet. A meeting has been scheduled. The Xantari were a fearsome species, known for their ruthless expansion and technological superiority. Their ships were sleek, deadly, and their military tactics were as efficient as they were merciless." Rain knew the Xantari well. Their fleets had clashed with humanity's forces in the past, but those skirmishes had been small, isolated incidents. The Xantari had never taken humanity seriously, until now. "What are they planning?" Rain asked, her tone sharp. "Uncertain," Arcos replied. "But the Xantari fleet is vast, and they have already crossed into neutral space. They are preparing for a potential confrontation." A sense of foreboding settled over Rain. The galaxy had never been more dangerous. The Dominion was broken, yes, but new challenges had emerged. The Alliance, the Xantari. These factions would not allow humanity's rise without a fight. The Judicator had proven its might, but Rain knew that raw strength was not enough to navigate the complexities of galactic politics. The galaxy was not only about power, it was about alliances, influence, and perception. Humanity had made its mark, but now it would need to tread carefully. "Prepare for the meeting," Rain commanded. "We are not here to dominate, but we will not cower in the face of threats either. Humanity's future will be shaped on our terms." The Judicator's engines roared to life as the ship moved toward the coordinates set by the Xantari Empire. Rain stood at the command console, her mind focused, her resolve hardening like steel. This was just the beginning. The Dominion had been brought low, but humanity's true challenge had only just begun. There would be no easy answers, no simple victories. To secure humanity's place in the galaxy, Rain would need to play a game of politics, of strategy, and if necessary, war. As the Judicator streaked through space, Rain's thoughts drifted back to the battle with the Dominion. The power that had been unlocked in that conflict was undeniable. The human race had learned the lessons of survival, of perseverance, and of never backing down in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a lesson the Xantari would soon learn as well. The stage was set, the pieces moving into place, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. Would humanity stand alone, or would they find allies among the stars? Rain didn't know, but she was ready for whatever came next. The Judicator slowed as it neared the coordinates set by the Xantari. The vastness of the space ahead seeming to stretch endlessly, like an ocean with no shore. Admiral Rain stood before the window of the command center, her gaze fixed on the darkness beyond. The cold emptiness of space had a beauty to it, but today it was tinged with tension, with the weight of all that had transpired. Humanity had won a battle against the Dominion, but now the stakes were higher. The Zentari Empire loomed large on the horizon, and the galaxy was watching, waiting, to see which direction humanity would go. The Zentari ships appeared on the radar with startling speed, like sleek, predatory creatures emerging from the void. Their fleet was massive, dozens of ships, each one a symbol of their technological might. The Zentari had been a shadow on the galaxy for centuries, their empire expanding relentlessly, their reach seemingly unstoppable. But now, they were facing something they hadn't anticipated. Humanity. A force that had shattered the Dominion. A force that would not be easily intimidated. Admiral, Arcos's voice cut through the tension in the air. The Zentari fleet is in position. They are demanding an audience. They are requesting a direct transmission. Rain's mind raced, calculating the implications of this encounter. The Zentari were not known for diplomatic overtures. They were a species of warriors, driven by conquest and expansion. They had never been willing to negotiate with lesser species, at least not until now. What had changed? Was it fear, or was it something else? "Patch it through," Rain said, her voice calm but heavy with anticipation. The holographic screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing form of General Vrax, the commander of the Zentari fleet. His alien face was stern, his black eyes cold and calculating. He was draped in the elaborate armor of his people, a symbol of the Zentari's martial prowess and unyielding pride. "Admiral Rain." Vrax's voice was deep, a rumble that seemed to reverberate through the very hull of the Judicator. "You have proven yourself a formidable force, and for that, we acknowledge your strength. But do not mistake this as a sign of weakness. The Zentari Empire does not bend to the will of others. Your victory over the Dominion was impressive, but it changes nothing. You will bow to our superiority, or you will face annihilation." The words hung in the air, heavy with menace. Rain's eyes narrowed as she listened to Vrax's ultimatum. He was trying to intimidate her, to rattle her with the full weight of the Zentari's reputation. But she had faced worse, and she knew that this was a test of humanity's resolve, of whether they could stand against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. She spoke with a calm authority that matched his own. "General Vrax, the Judicator represents humanity's resolve, not our desire for conquest. We seek peace, but we will not be intimidated by your threats. If you believe the Zentari Empire can crush us, then come and try. We will stand our ground." Vrax's eyes flashed with a cold fury, but there was something else there, something calculating. For a moment, Rain saw the doubt in his gaze, the flicker of uncertainty that passed over his features. He hadn't expected this. The Zentari had always seen themselves as the apex of galactic civilization, and humanity was an afterthought. But now, the situation had changed. The Judicator was not just a warship, it was a symbol of everything humanity had overcome. It was a challenge to the very idea that any species could dominate the galaxy with impunity. A tense silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the ship's systems. Finally, Vrax spoke again, his tone more measured. "You are bold, Admiral, but do not mistake bravery for wisdom. The Zentari do not tolerate defiance. We have seen what your ship can do, but power alone does not guarantee victory. If you truly seek peace, then you will surrender your fleet and submit to our will. If you refuse, we will erase you from the stars." Rain's hand rested on the console in front of her, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. The weight of the decision was not lost on her. This was it, the moment when humanity would either rise to the challenge or be crushed beneath the weight of a galaxy that had never truly believed in their potential. She could almost feel the tension in the air, as if the galaxy itself were holding its breath, waiting for the next move. But Rain did not waver. She had come too far, and humanity had proven that it was not to be underestimated. She met Vrax's gaze, her eyes unwavering. "General, humanity does not bow to tyranny. We will defend ourselves, and we will defend our future. If you wish to test our resolve, you are welcome to try." For a long moment, Vrax said nothing. The silence between them grew heavy, as if the galaxy itself were holding its breath. Then, without warning, he issued the order. "All ships, fire." The Zantari fleet surged forward, their weapons charging, ready to unleash destruction. But the Judicator was faster, its engines roaring to life as it shot forward, its weapons activating with deadly precision. In an instant, the battle was joined. Laser fire and plasma blasts filled the space between the two fleets. The Judicator's advanced weaponry cutting through the Zantari lines with brutal efficiency. The Judicator was a new breed of warship, a marvel of human ingenuity. Its weapon systems, designed with technology scavenged from the remnants of the Dominion and refined by human engineers, were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zantari ships, though powerful, were no match for the raw might and precision of the Judicator's firepower. The space around them became a swirling maelstrom of destruction. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, their once proud forms disintegrating into clouds of debris. The Zantari fleet, despite their superior numbers, were being systematically dismantled. Every move they made was anticipated. Every counterattack met with devastating force. The Judicator had become a force of nature, a predator hunting its prey. In the chaos of battle, Admiral Rain stood resolute, her mind focused on the task at hand. She had no illusions about what this battle meant. Victory here would not end. The war, it would only be the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's place among the stars was still in question. But in this moment, humanity had proven that it was not a species to be taken lightly. The Judicator was a symbol of that strength, and Rain would ensure that it would be remembered. As the final Zantari ships were reduced to nothing more than drifting wreckage, Rain stood alone at the helm of the Judicator. She had won, but the galaxy had been forever changed. The Dominion was gone, the Zantari had been humbled, and humanity, for the first time in history, had proven that it could not only survive, but thrive in the harsh, unforgiving expanse of space. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning.